Look in the drawer. You know the one. The junk drawer, the closet shelf, the cardboard box you have carried to 3 different apartments and never once opened. There is something in there you will never use again. An old phone, a jacket that does not fit, a gift from someone whose name you have half forgotten. You would not pay a single dollar to buy any of it today, and yet you cannot bring yourself to throw it away. Why? Why does a thing you clearly do not want become a thing you somehow cannot lose? There is a name for what your brain just did. Economists call it the endowment effect. And once you learn to see it, you will notice it running quietly underneath half the decisions you make. Here is the strangest experiment in all of behavioral science, and it is almost too simple to believe. In 1990, 3 researchers, Daniel Kahneman, Jack Netsch, and Richard Thaler, walked into a university classroom. They handed a plain coffee mug to half the students. The other half got nothing at all. Then they opened a little market. The students with mugs were allowed to sell. The students without were allowed to buy. Same mug, same room, the whole thing happening minutes apart. You would expect the price to settle somewhere sensible, somewhere in the middle. It did not. The owners demanded, on average, about $5.25 to give their mug up. The buyers offered only about $2.25 to get one. More than double for the exact same object. And here's the part that quietly broke the textbooks. Standard economics predicted that about half the mugs would change hands. People who cared less selling to people who cared more. Almost no one traded. The mugs just stayed put. Sit with what that means. Nothing about the mug had changed. Its color, its weight, its little logo, all identical. The only thing that changed was who happened to be holding it. Ownership itself had reached in and rewritten the price. And it scales far past mugs. In another study, students who had won prized basketball tickets in a lottery were asked to name their price. On average, the winners wanted about 14 times more to sell their tickets than other students were willing to pay to buy them. 14 times. For the same seats, to the same game. Thaler had actually named this quirk a decade earlier, back in 1980. But the engine underneath it belongs to Kahneman and his research partner, Amos Tversky, and an idea they called loss aversion. Their finding was blunt. Losses hurt more than equal gains feel good, roughly twice as much. Losing $20 stings harder than finding $20 delights. Now watch how that quietly rigs the game. The moment the mug is yours, giving it up counts as a loss. Getting a mug, if you have none, is merely a gain. It is the same mug, but one of you is playing with loaded dice. Owning it has quietly moved your starting line. And from that new line, letting the mug go feels like walking backwards. You are not really valuing the object anymore. You are dreading the loss of it. And you do not even need money for this to happen. Netsch ran a version with no prices at all. He gave one group a mug, another group a chocolate bar, then offered everyone a simple, free swap. Trade your mug for the candy, or your candy for the mug. Your choice, no cost, no catch. About 9 out of 10 people refused. Whatever had landed in their hands first became the thing they suddenly wanted the most. Not because it was better, simply because it was already theirs. So the effect is real, it is strong, and it does not care about your logic. But here's the question that should be nagging at you by now. Is this just a human thing? Some bad habit we picked up from money and shopping malls and price tags? No. And this is where the story gets wonderful. Take it to the animals. A team of researchers led by the psychologist Laurie Santos taught capuchin monkeys to use small metal tokens as money, trading them for treats. And the monkeys, it turned out, overvalued whatever food they were already holding, clutching it in exactly the way you clutch your mug. Capuchins split off from our own branch of the family tree more than 30 million years ago. Chimpanzees do it too. In a 2007 study, Sarah Brosnan and Owen Jones found that chimps would stubbornly hold on to a food treat they had been given far more than they would cling to a mere toy or tool. And in a follow-up, the effect could be switched on and off. A chimp shrugged at a useless stick, but the instant that stick could rake in food, it refused to give the stick up. The instinct to guard what is already yours runs older and deeper than any market. It is not a gap in your education. It is wiring.
You can even watch it happen inside the brain. In 2008, the neuroscientist Brian Knudsen slid people into a scanner and asked them to imagine selling things they owned. When they did, a region called the anterior insula lit up, the very same patch of brain that flickers with physical pain, with disgust, with the raw feeling of something going wrong. Selling your own stuff, on some quiet level, actually hurts. But hold on, if losing is what hurts, is loss really the whole story? Here's the turn. A researcher named Kerry Morwedge tried something clever. He took people who already owned a mug and asked them not to sell it, but to buy a second, identical one. These owners still valued mugs sky high as the sellers did, even though buying a second mug is not a loss at all. It is just spending. That should not happen if loss aversion were the only engine. So perhaps it is something stranger. Perhaps the moment a thing is yours, it stops being an object out there and becomes a small piece of you. Not something you are afraid to lose, something you can no longer cleanly separate from yourself. The word mine is doing far more work than we ever notice. You can even feel it in things you build. There is a cousin of this bias that researchers named the IKEA effect. The simple act of assembling something with your own hands makes you love it and overvalue it, far beyond what a stranger would ever pay. Your wobbly, lopsided bookshelf is worth more to you precisely because it cost you an afternoon. Now look at what all of this costs you in real life. It is why you cannot declutter. Every object you try to bin registers as a tiny loss, so the pile just grows. It is why people price their garage sale junk like buried treasure. It is why homeowners, as David Genesove and Christopher Mayer showed in A Falling Housing Market, stubbornly overprice their homes, wave away fair offers, and then sit there unsold for months, rather than accept a loss against what they once paid. And it is why the entire modern economy is quietly engineered to hand you things. The free 30-day trial. The take it home, try it, send it back anytime promise. The subscription you keep meaning to cancel. That is not generosity, that is the endowment effect, weaponized. Once the product is in your home, in your hands, tangled into your daily life, it is yours. And handing it back now feels like a loss, so you keep it, and you pay. This bias has a quieter cousin too. Back in 1988, William Samuelson and Richard Zeckhauser described what they called status quo bias, our steady pull toward whatever we already have, whatever box is already ticked, the plan you never switched, the setting you never changed, the auto-renew you never turned off. You do not even have to own a thing to cling to it. You only have to have it sitting there as your starting point. But do not despair, because this is not a life sentence, and that is the best part of the whole story. The economist John List went out to real trading floors, the sports card shows and collectibles markets where people buy and sell all day long, and he found something hopeful. The seasoned dealers barely showed the endowment effect at all. Practice at letting go had slowly worn it down. The more you trade, the looser your grip becomes. And the effect has a blind spot. It does not clamp down on the money in your wallet, or on anything you are holding specifically to spend or trade. As Nathan Novemsky and Kahneman showed, the things you always intended to give up, you give up freely. It only sinks its claws into what you meant to keep. So here is the tool you can walk away with. The next time you cannot let something go, do not ask yourself, how much would I sell this for? Ask the other question, the honest one. If I did not already own this, how much would I pay to get it today? Then sit with the gap between those two numbers, because that gap is not the object's value. That gap is the effect itself, the invisible tax your own mind charges you over and over for the simple crime of already owning something. Now go and look in that drawer again, the thing you cannot part with, the old phone, the jacket, the mug. You were never really keeping it. All this time, it was quietly keeping you.